Anything we need to take up before we bring jurors? Let's bring jurors, please.
Your Honor, may I read from?
Yes, sir.
This one. All right, age ago when we broke, we were speaking about the photographs from the deck area, and I believe we have introduced those, and I will publish at this time.
Yes, you may publish those.
Starting with State's Exhibit number 173. And I'm going to step around here with you, Agent Gold, just so I can see. 173, will you describe what you see there for us, ma'am?
This is a photograph looking out onto the deck, standing in the living room, and this is the sliding glass door and then the deck.
You mentioned that there was a sliding glass door. Can you were there two doors there, one door? What was the general layout, configuration of the doors to that balcony?
It's a sliding glass door, so this panel slides back.
Was there a screen as well?
Yes, I believe there's a sliding screen door.
When you first arrived there on the scene, Agent Gold, do you recall whether that door was open or shut?
I believe at the time of my arrival it was closed and unlocked.
Okay. So the balcony door was unlocked at the time you arrived?
Yes.
Do you know if Hannah and a construction worker had been out there on that balcony prior to your arrival?
I was told that they went out on the deck, yes.
Thank you. We'll go to State's Exhibit 174. What do you see there?
Again, it's another view looking from the living room just in front of the open sliding glass door onto the deck.
Clearly, grill, chairs, a plant up on this balcony at that point.
Yes, that's correct.
175.
And again, another photo of the deck.
176.
That's the other side of the deck.
177.
Further, here you can see the sliding screen door is pushed all the way back.
178.
That's a photograph standing kind of on the other side of that table and chair you just saw, photographing that way.
And in looking at State's Exhibit 178, is it clear at this point that there's actually a sliding screen and a sliding glass door?
Yes, there are.
179.
That is, again, taking a photograph looking out towards the deck. You can see the sliding glass door here, and there's fingerprint powder right here.
And that's what I want to ask you about at this point, Agent Gold. At this point, are you doing some processing of this door area?
Yes, at that point, we are.
And when you said it was fingerprint powder, is that, again, the powder you're looking for latent fingerprints?
That's correct.
And there on that area of the door, if we can go to State's Exhibit 180, were you able to develop a latent piece of evidence?
I believe this is where we developed a faint suspected cloth impression.
And can you said cloth impression on 180, again, using your finger, if you can just kind of describe for the members of the jury why you believe that 27 was a cloth impression.
Again, there's no ridge detail to indicate a fingerprint, so it's an impression of some other item.
And State's Exhibit number 181.
You can faintly see the pattern, very faint.
And in State's Exhibit number 180, the pattern that you, 181, what's the general pattern that you see there?
I guess the best way to describe it would be just some dots.
And again, is that consistent with a cloth impression versus a fingerprint impression, which has the ridge detail that you've described?
That's correct. Fingerprints have ridge detail, which make up the loops and rolls of the fingerprint.
And so I was going to ask you about that ridge detail. When you look at your fingers and you see those loops in there, that's the ridge detail that you're speaking about.
Yes, that's correct.
182. What do you see there?
Again, same thing, looking out and taking the photograph, and you can see all the fingerprint powder in here.
We just talked about State's Exhibit, well, a CCBI Exhibit number 27, the cloth impression. Is that where that cloth impression would have been located?
Yes, it is.
State's Exhibit 183. What do you see there?
This is the one corner of the exterior deck, and with a marker 13 placed down there. I believe 13 is a suspected blood droplet.
So again, when you find that suspected blood droplet, you put an evidence marker down.
That's correct.
State's Exhibit 184.
That's a closer photograph of, right here, the suspected blood droplet at number 13.
And can we back the photograph up one, Ms. Shakita, to 183? 183, the direction that we're looking at in the parking lot, from the balcony into the parking lot now. What's this area kind of behind in the background of this photograph?
These are all the other apartment buildings that are under construction.
And down here below the balcony appears to be a sidewalk, and then is that the main entrance to the apartment complex there, Agent Gold?
Yes, it is.
And again, in the background, we kind of see a fence area there. Is that the fence that divided the occupied building from the buildings that they're under construction?
Yes, I believe that's what it divided. It ran all here and then around.
So that is one side of the deck. And now I'm going
Right, so if you were looking out from the living room, it would be the right side of the deck.
Let's go to State's Exhibit 145 now. 185. Let's just start with the orientation of this photograph. What side of the deck are we looking at this point?
So if you were looking out from the living room, that would be the left railing. So the left shorter railing, and then you'd have the horizontal, and then the second vertical one.
Sidewalk here appears to be leading into the apartment complex or apartment building. Is that the sidewalk that would have led into the breezeway area of this apartment building?
Yes, it does.
And this ladder here was not present at your initial processing, is that correct?
That's correct. It was not there at our arrival.
State's Exhibit number 1. Well, we'll stay on that one. I didn't ask you about 35. What does 35 indicate to you there?
35 is either going to be a suspected blood droplet or it's a developed suspected cloth impression. I'm not sure which, without checking out my notes.
We'll talk about that here in just a second. We'll go to 186.
Okay.
Taking a look at 186, does that kind of refresh your memory as to what that was there?
So that is a developed with the fingerprint powder suspected cloth impression on that railing.
Okay, and now you mentioned going back to state the CCBI number 46, which was on the bedpost. You said that was a cloth impression that was developed through blood. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. State's Exhibit 186, depicting CCBI number 35. Is that impression different than what we saw earlier in regards to the bedpost photograph?
Different.
Does this one involve blood?
I can't say for certain, but it was processed and developed with fingerprint powder, not a blood chemical reactive develop method.
Okay. All right. So that's the difference I was asking about. The first one on the bedpost, it reacted when a blood process was going through.
Right. So that one reacted with the chemical that reacts with the blood. This one was processed with fingerprint powder. I can't say yes, no, there is no blood. It wasn't tested for blood.
Okay. State's exhibit number 187. What do you see there?
That's the opposite railing. So this is the railing above 13. So when you're looking out, it's on the right. And that is also, you can see all the powder where this has also been processed with fingerprint powder.
And state's exhibit number 188.
And those, again, are the suspected cloth impressions.
And 189.
That's a closer photograph of it.
If we can back up to 187, Ms. Shakita. So again, to be clear, you've got fabric impressions on each side of the deck rail at this point, is that correct?
That's correct.
And now, let me ask you this, Agent Gold. You as a CCBI agent, do you do any kind of comparison as to, for example, state's exhibit, CCBI 30 versus CCBI 35, in terms of do you compare to see if they are the same cloth that put that impression on the railing?
No, I am not a fiber expert. That's why I refer to them as suspected cloth impressions. That as far as I can go as a crime scene investigator, that would be someone else in a different job category. That would be their job to do that kind of comparison.
I'll stay with the photographs, and Ms. Shakita, if you can back us up to state's exhibit number 182. Thank you. I'm going to hand you, Agent Gold, what I'm going to mark. For identification purposes, State's Exhibit 190. Ask that you take a look at that and tell me if you recognize what it is.
This is a swab taken from a fabric impression, and it's item number 27. So it was taken where that sticker number 27 is located.
And again, does that envelope have the same identifying marks that let you know it came from this case?
Yes, it does. The case numbers and names and address.
If you will open State's Exhibit number 190.
This is the swab.
I'm going to ask that you put 190A on that swab. 190A, what does that appear to be, ma'am?
This is a swab, and it has been processed further by SBI. You can see where it's been cut.
And 190A, again, the swab, do you take any kind of lift from that area, or is it just the swab that you took?
Some of them have been lifted, and this one particular one was swabbed in case it was developed, in case the person who left, if it is a cloth impression, the person that left it sweat through the cloth. We were hoping to get the DNA.
And that's why you chose to just do the swab on State's Exhibit 190A.
And that's why it's been photographed instead of just lifted.
And when you say a lift, such as taking a cloth impression lift or a fingerprint lift, how do you actually go about making that lift?
It's the same as for a fingerprint. You simply place a piece of tape over it, rub over it, and then place it on a card, a fingerprint backing card.
Fingerprint backing card with kind of average layperson recognizes as just an index card.
Exactly. So it's just an index card, basically with some information you fill out on one side, and then the piece of tape with the lifted print goes on the opposite side of the index card.
So to be clear, this area 27 was swabbed but no lift.
That's correct.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce States Exhibits 190 and 190A in evidence.
Any objection? Allowed.
Moving forward, and Ms. Shakita, if we can go to States Exhibit 185. This is that area 35 that we spoke about earlier. I'm going to hand you what is now being marked as 191. So if you tell me if you recognize what this area, or excuse me, what 191 is.
Swab from a fabric impression. And it says item number 30.
Was that 30? I'm sorry.
It's the other side.
Let me take that one back. Yeah, we can go ahead and go to 30. That's fine. All right. Let's back up one. There we go. 187. All right, 191. Is that CCBI item number 30?
Yes, it is.
And again, you said that's a swab from a fabric impression?
Yes, it is.
And was that swab from the fabric impression taken in a similar manner as you described in the area where we talked about 27?
Yes, it was.
If you'll open States Exhibit 191. Thank you. Then what is 191A?
This is the swab that was collected from sticker number 30. It has also been cut. You can see a little bit of black stuff there on that side. A little bit of black powder.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce States Exhibit 191 and 191A.
Any objection? Allowed.
Now, if we can go back to the area that depicts 35. You have that, Mr. Shakita.
Oh, I'm sorry. If you want one right
If we can go back. Yes, ma'am. There you go. I'm handing you what has been marked for identification as 192. You'll take a look at 192 and tell me what that is.
Swab from a fabric impression at sticker 35.
Okay. And if you will open States Exhibit 192.
It's a lip.
I'm going to place a red evidence sticker on 192. And is that 35 or 30?
This is 35. It looks like SBI put this into the envelope as part of their processing.
Okay. 30. Okay, so you've just identified now what is 192A as a lift.
Yes, well this is what a lift looks like.
If you can use in States Exhibit number 185 here in conjunction with 192A and tell us how 192A is developed.
So this is right here. It is simply developed by brushing black powder, volcanic powder, lightly over the surface, and the powder will adhere to the oils, proteins, amino acids left behind by a fingerprint, or any contaminants that might be on cloth, or if someone is sweating and it saturates the cloth, that will also leave behind an impression.
And then how do you get that impression off of, say, this deck rail here and onto that car?
You simply take this piece of tape and you lay it over the impression, and you lift it up, lay it back down on this card.
And
That's it.
And the impression ends like you see there in 192A.
That's right.
And then on the back of that card, do you make some identifying marks so that you know
This is not me.
that is not you? Okay, there's some identifying marks on the back of that card. Do you recognize who those markings would be from?
No,
Yeah. They weren't there when you put it on the card.
that's right.
But at some point, does it appear there's been additional processing to State's Exhibit
Yes.
192A?
And you can see that it was received at the State Crime Lab and that they have dated and signed it in multiple areas here.
And other than that additional processing that has taken place, does State's Exhibit 192A appear to be in the same condition as when you took it off the deck rail here as depicted in 185?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibit 192 and 192A.
Any objection? It's allowed.
And if we could go back, Ms. Shakita, to number 13, item number 13.
That one in there.
That's fine. Yeah, if we could back up there, thank you. Stick with you. I'm going to hand you what has been marked for identification purposes as 193. Let me just have a moment. Identified as State's Exhibit number 35, I believe. Take a look at State's Exhibit number 35 and tell me if you recognize what that item is.
Blood swab from the exterior right side of the deck railing, item number 13.
And so that item, is that consistent with what would the blood swab taken on here at number 13?
Yes, it would be.
And if you will open State's Exhibit number 35. And I'm going to ask that you label that as 35A. And tell me what 35A is.
This is the swab that was collected from that evidence marker number 13, and you can see that it has also been processed at SBI.
And is it your understanding, Agent Gold, that detectives with the Raleigh Police Department were taking items such as, the blood swab here on 13 to the SBI early on to try and develop suspects in the case?
Yes, they did. I believe this is one of the ones that was taken that day.
Any
Or maybe
change,
the next day, but yes.
other than the evident processing there that you've spoken about, any changes or alterations to that document? Or excuse me, that item?
No, there aren't.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask to introduce 35 and 35A.
Any objection? It's allowed.
Agent Gold, is that a representation of the photographs that you took out at the crime scene on the days that you were present?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And that's not all the photographs that you took, but does that kind of represent each one of the rooms that you went through and processed?
Yes, it does.
Now, just to be clear, Agent Gold, how many days did you go out to the crime scene itself there at Allister?
We were there for 2 days.
Okay, and what days were you present there at the crime scene?
Both days.
Right, and that would be on May 14th and May 15th?
Yes, that's correct.
How many hours did you spend out there each day?
I believe the first day we arrived around 9:30, 9:45, and we left at midnight. And the second day I think we arrived around 8 a.m. And I'm not sure what time we left the second day. I don't know.
Pretty much there all day.
Oh, yes, pretty much.
All right. You've mentioned several times during the course of your testimony that at different points you went back to the lab and processed items. Is that right?
No, these items would have been processed after the scene was finished.
Right.
So it wasn't like you were at the crime scene, you go process stuff at the lab, and then you go back to the crime scene. We worked the crime scene for the 14th and 15th, and then the items would have been processed later on in the week.
Okay. Such as we talked a little bit about the jewelry armoire, and that you took it back to the lab and processed that. So you would have done that at a later point.
That's correct.
And when you say the lab, where's your lab, or where is CCBI's lab?
It's located on Hammond Road.
And what type of processing do you do at a lab versus what you do there at the scene?
Well, you're able to lay each item out individually, take better photographs, some close-up photographs. You're able to utilize the chemicals. It's a more stable environment as far as, you know, it's a lab rather than working in the crime scene itself for each item of evidence. And we're able to like take the sheet and hang it up, completely extend it out to hang it up. So it's a little easier to work with items that way.
And any concern, Agent Gold, that evidence will change over the course of a couple days if you get it from the crime scene on one day and then you don't process it to a couple days later? Any chance that the evidence will change there on those items?
No. Anything that would be at a risk of being destroyed would be collected at the crime scene itself.
And items that you collect that you're going to process for latent evidence at a later point, are they held in a secure facility there within the lab also?
Yes, they are. They're inside a locked locker, inside a locked room, inside a locked building. It's many levels of security.
And when we talk about latent evidence such as fingerprints, do they deteriorate over time, or will they remain the same unless some intervening force comes in and wipes them out?
They should remain the same unless something happens. Yes.
Same kind of thing with DNA evidence and blood evidence. As long as they're not contaminated in any way, will they remain there and present even a couple days later, weeks later, or whatnot?
Yes, they should.
I want to turn your attention now to the date of May 17th. Did you do some additional processing on May 17th?
Let's see. I believe that's the day I started the processing in the lab.
Okay.
Yes.
And what items did you process there on May 17th?
The fitted sheet, the jewelry armoire drawer, and the cardboard boxes that were with it. Is it okay if I look at my notes?
Yes, please. And you've got your notes there to help refresh your recollection?
Yeah, it's just my report. And then the window blind and the pink Victoria's Secret box and the iTunes card.
Specifically, what type of processing did you do on each one of those items?
All of them are visually examined first, photographed second. Other than that, the processes vary slightly depending on the surfaces and if there's blood on an item, that will be processed first, and then it'll be processed for the fingerprints. So it varies a little bit for the items.
Why do you do it in that order, Agent Gold?
Well, you want to always collect the blood first because that's the DNA evidence. You don't want to risk contaminating it by, adding fingerprint powder or anything like that.
How did you go about processing the items on May 17th?
Well, the sheet was photographed, and it was examined with it's called an alternate light source. So basically it utilizes different wavelengths of light, and then for the most part we use approximately 480 nanometers, which is the blue lights, the ones that you see on TV all the time, that you see them using that blue light with orange goggles. And so we examined that sheet for any type of fluorescence in case there had been a sexual assault.
And so that's why you're using the blue light there on the sheet.
That's why we did that.
During the course of processing that sheet, did you find any evidence of a sexual assault there on the sheet?
No, we didn't.
And when we're referring to the sheet, are we talking about the big sheet that you and Detective Brady displayed for the members of the jury earlier?
Yes, that's correct.
What did you do next there?
I processed the jewelry armoire drawer and the cardboard jewelry boxes, the blue one and the white one. let's see. So I have to break it down a little bit because they were processed differently. Is that all right?
Yes, go ahead.
The blue one, was tested for the presence of blood using pheno with a positive reaction. A swab was then collected. It was then processed for fingerprints. So that means that particular item was processed because it was cardboard, but it had a coating on it, so it wasn't completely porous. So it was processed as though it was a non-porous item. So it was placed in the super glue tank, the cyanoacrylate, and it was then processed with powder after it finished. Sorry, cyanoacrylate, cyanoacrylate. You're welcome. So that's the super glue, and after it comes out of there, you then process it with the powder.
And were you able to develop fingerprints off of that item?
Let's see. Yes, there were 2 latent cards collected from that particular box, the blue box.
And is that the Leah Sophia jewelry box?
Yes, it is.
If I may approach the witness.
Yes.
I'm going to hand you what is being identified as State's Exhibit number 193. What are these items? Or what does that photograph depict?
So this is the photograph that I take in the lab, and it depicts item number 7, which is the armoire drawer, the blue cardboard box, and the white cardboard box.
So the blue box and the white box are all contained in that item number 7 that we saw earlier.
That's correct.
And that would be State's Exhibit numbers 128, A, B, and C for our purposes. Okay, so you processed 128B first. Was that the blue box?
That's correct. And so where the blood stain was is where this little scale was, and so that was collected there, and then it was then submitted as another item of evidence.
Okay, and then did you process 128A, the white box, as well?
Yes, that was also processed, and that one was processed with it's the same process because they're coated, they're non-porous. So it was processed with the super glue followed by the powder.
And were you able to develop any latent evidence off of the white box?
No, there wasn't.
And how about the drawer itself? Were you able to develop any latent evidence off the drawer itself?
Don't think so. No, no latent prints were developed, but it was also processed the same way with the super glue and the powder. You can still see remnants of it on the front.
Did you get a cloth impression from that item, from item 7 at any point?
Yes, and that would have been then submitted as item number 53.
Okay. And where did the cloth impression, where did the cloth impression come off of the drawer?
You can kind of see where there was a sticker here. It would have been in this area.
I'm going to hand you what has been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit number 194. If you'll take a look at 194 and tell me what that is.
One suspected cloth impression from the drawer at item 7, jewelry armoire drawer, item number 53.
And if you will open State's Exhibit 193, excuse me, 194. I'm going to put 194 sticker on that, and if you can tell us what 194 is.
This is the lift. You can see here's the sticker that left a little bit on the front, and this is the lift of the suspected cloth impression.
And we were speaking earlier, and that's mentioned on the back of the card. Do you put any information that depicts where that lift would have come from?
It has a small diagram, and a little X indicates where I found the cloth impression. It has the item number, our case number, Raleigh's case number, and then a description of what it is.
Any changes or alterations to 194A?
No, there isn't.
And I'm going to hand you 195 and 196. And do you recognize those photographs?
These here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, these are photographs of the drawer showing item 50, the sticker for item 53, the suspected cloth impression.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce 193, 195, and 196 for illustrative purposes, and 194 and 194A for substantive purposes.
Any objection? All right, 193, 95, 195, 196 are illustrative, and 194 is for substantive.
Thank you. And Your Honor, this time I'd ask for permission to publish.
Yes, sir.
193, what do you see there, ma'am?
That's an overall photo of all the items in item 7 taken at the lab.
Okay. And going on to 194. I'm sorry, 195.
That's a photograph of the drawer itself after it's been processed and the sticker has been placed.
And that sticker, is that the area in which you developed the fabric impression?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And again, similar to what we talked about outside on the balcony, at any point, do you do any comparison of saying this cloth impression is similar or different from the fabric impressions that you collected outside?
No, I do not.
Thank you, ma'am. Let's move on to the next item that you processed there that day. What was the next item that you processed there in the lab?
The window blind.
Okay. Well, how did you process those window blinds?
It was also processed with super glue followed by powder.
All right. And when you say super glue, we're talking about the super glue, like you could.
The super glue chamber.
Okay.
And the fancy word is that cyanoacrylate.
And when you processed that window blind, and again, was that the big window blind that you and I displayed to the members of the jury earlier?
Yes, it was.
Were you able to get any latent evidence off of that window blind?
Yes. Actually, there were two. One from the broken window blind, and then one from the top bracket part that connects it to the wall, that thick part.
And what type of latent evidence were you able to collect from that window blind?
They were latent fingerprint evidence cards.
What was the next item that you examined?
The pink Victoria's Secret box and a pink iTunes card.
What type of processing did you do of those items?
They were both processed the same way, utilizing super glue followed by powder, and a suspected cloth impression was developed on the lid of the Victoria's Secret box.
Let me approach.
Yes.
I'm going to approach you with what has previously been identified as State's Exhibit 50. And if you will take a look at State's Exhibit 50 and tell me if you recognize what it is. Well, I'll start with State's Exhibit 50 itself.
Okay. It's the pink Victoria's Secret box and the iTunes card.
Okay. And to be clear, State's Exhibit 50 is the bag that those items appear to be in. Is that right? The 50 itself is the
Yes,
bag.
yes.
All right, if you will remove the contents of State's Exhibit 50. The pink box, I believe, has already been identified as 50A. I'm going to put a sticker on the iTunes card as 50B. And do you recognize those items?
This is the Victoria's Secret box, and this is the iTunes card.
Okay. If you place this 50B sticker. Excuse me. And do those items appear to have the black fingerprint powder that you have discussed earlier?
Yes, they both have the powder.
Okay. And when you process, we'll start with the Victoria's Secret box. Did you develop any latent evidence off of that box?
A suspected cloth impression was developed on the lid, and it was down in this area. You could see where the tape removed the powder.
How about on the iTunes card 50B? Did you develop any latent evidence off of 50B?
I don't think so, no.
I'm going to hand you 197. You can take a look at 197 and tell us what that is.
One suspected cloth impression from the lid of the Victoria's Secret box.
Okay. And if you will open State's Exhibit 197. I'm going to hand you 197A sticker to put on there. And what do you see in regards to that lift card?
It's the suspected cloth impression lifted with a piece of tape.
And on the back, does it have the identifying information in terms of where you got the lift off of?
Yes, the small diagram, the case numbers, the item number, and the description.
Okay. In looking at 197, again, Agent Gold, can you tell us a little bit about why you suspected that to be a cloth impression and not a fingerprint impression?
It was an impression without any ridge detail.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibits 50A, excuse me, 50, 50A, 50B, and 197 and 197A.
Any objection? They are allowed.
Yes, ma'am, that's fine, thank you. Any other items processed there on May 17th?
No, sir.
Okay, let's move on to the next day that you did work on this case. Would that be May 22nd of 2013?
Yes, it is.
Tell us what type of processing that you did on May 22nd of 2013.
I processed the white purse, the plastic storage container from the kitchen, the one that had the bottles, all the prescription bottles, and the cloth-covered book, the book cover, the Bible, and the notebook.
We'll start with the white and colored purse. Was that, again, going back to kind of where we started off, that the first item one that we've seen the photograph of and that's been introduced into evidence? The white purse.
Yes, it is.
What type of examination did you do of the white purse?
It was photographed and visually examined. There was a suspected blood stain on the purse, and a swab was collected from that blood stain.
And did you do any type of analysis on the suspected blood stain?
Yes, it was tested with the phenolphthalein with a positive reaction.
And again, then you said you also did one of those swabs on that bag as well?
Yes, I did.
Item two, you identified that as the plastic storage container from the kitchen counter.
I believe that's...
What type
yes.
of processing did you do on that?
That was processed for fingerprints with super glue followed by the powder.
And were you able to develop any latent evidence on that item of evidence?
No.
And then what was the third item that you examined there?
It was the items from the bedroom floor, the cloth book cover, the Bible, and the notebook, and they were all photographed, visually examined, and then there was a suspected blood stain on the cloth book cover, which was also tested with phenolphthalein with a positive reaction, and a swab was collected.
If I may approach, Your Honor.
Yes.
We'll start with the purse. I'm going to label this as State's Exhibit. This photograph is 198. Do you recognize that item of evidence or that photograph?
Yes, this is a photograph of the purse.
Okay. I'm going to place State's Exhibit 92A. Watch it. Contaminate your water. State's Exhibit 92A, the purse that's previously been introduced into evidence. Is that the same as that photograph?
Yes, it is. It still has the scale with the number 69 on it.
Your Honor, this time I would ask you to do State's Exhibit number 198 for illustrative purposes.
It's allowed for illustrative purposes.
And you mentioned on State's Exhibit 92A, the actual purse, and in the photograph, that there is a marker there and it has the number 69 on it. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to hand you 199. Take a look at 199 and tell me if you recognize what 199 is.
It's suspected blood swab collected from the white purse, which is item number 1, and this is now item number 69. The swab itself is item 69.
And if you will open 199. And I'm going to hand you 199A if you'll place 199A on that swab.
This is the swab.
And does it appear that there's been some further processing done at the SBI or another crime lab in regards to that
Yes.
199A swab?
Yes, it does. It appears that the tip has been cut off.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce 199 and 199A.
Any objection? It's allowed.
In State's Exhibit 69, you said that you tested that area for the presence of blood and there was a positive reaction.
That's correct.
I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit number 113A, which was previously identified as the Bible cover, and photographs 200 and 201. Taking a look at 200 and 201, do they fairly and accurately depict that Bible cover?
Yes, they do.
This time I would ask to introduce 200 and 201 for illustrative purposes.
They are allowed for illustrative purposes.
And then I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit number 202. And tell me if you recognize what State's Exhibit 202 is.
One suspected blood swab collected from the cloth book, which was item number 3, and the swab is now item number 70.
Okay. So to be clear, Agent Gold, the first thing you did was test the area for the presence of blood. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And was there a positive reaction to that area?
Yes, there was.
Okay. After getting that positive reaction, did you do the swabs one of the swabs that we've been talking about?
Yes, that's correct.
If you'll open State's Exhibit number 202.
That's the swab.
I'm going to ask that you label that as 202A. And again, Agent Gold, can you tell if there's been some processing that has been completed on that 202A?
Well, it's hard to tell. I don't see anything. Doesn't appear to be cut.
So you can't tell one way or another.
Doesn't look like it.
Does it appear to be in the same condition as when you first obtained it back in May of 2013?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce 202 and 202A.
Any objection? They're allowed.
The photograph 201, can you show the members of the jury using the actual item of evidence 113A where the blood was on the Bible cover?
It's kind of hard to see. It's right here. You see the brown stain.
Thank you, Agent Gold. Any other processing of evidence items on that day?
No, there wasn't.
Moving on to June 1st of 2013, did you do some additional processing at that point?
I did. I did photographs of several items.
What items did you photograph?
Most of the bedding and the clothes hamper and the dryer vent.
And so the bedding and the clothes hamper, those are the items that we've already spoken about here today.
I also photographed the victim's clothing.
The specifically in regards to a dryer vent, let me ask you about that. What dryer vent are you referencing, Agent Gold?
There were dryer vents on the exterior of the building, one on each side of the exterior deck, and they both appeared to be dented, and we did collect one of them after it was processed. There appeared to be a partial shoe print developed on that dryer vent.
So kind of taking you back in time a little bit, when you were processing the scene there on May, do you recall if it was on May 14th or May 15th when you noticed that the dryer vents were damaged?
I believe the dryer vent was the 14th.
So on the first day of processing. Now, to be clear, Agent Gold, did you yourself remove that dryer vent from the side of the building?
No, I did not.
And did you photograph that dryer vent there that day, or was it another agent that did that?
Supervisor Galloway removed it and photographed it on the scene.
So then on June 1st, you were responsible for doing additional photographs of the actual dryer vent?
That's correct. I simply took additional photographs in the lab setting.
Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about the dryer vent here in a minute, but other than photographing those items of evidence that we've spoken about, did you develop any latent evidence on any items of evidence there at the scene? I mean, excuse me, there in the lab that day?
No, I did not.
Yes.
Agent Gold, I'm handing you what has been marked for identification purposes, State's Exhibits 203 through 205. Do you recognize these photographs?
Yes, these are photographs of the dryer vent taken in the lab.
Okay. And there, you mentioned that there appeared to be some processing that had been done that revealed some sort of shoe impression. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that shoe impression invisible on the dryer vent as it appears here in these photographs?
It's visible, yes. In the photographs, yes.
Okay. And again, you talked about a little bit about powder and different chemicals that are used to generate some sort of latent impression. What sort of powder or chemical is used in this type of situation when you're dealing with a shoe impression?
This was developed with fingerprint powder.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibits number 203 through 205 into evidence.
Any objection?
Yes, sir.
They are allowed for illustrative purposes.
Besides the photographs that you took there that day of the dryer vent, did you do any further processing of the dryer vent at that time?
No, I did not.
Moving on to June 2nd of 2013, what items did you process on June 2nd of 2013?
The jewelry armoire, the brown comforter, and the pillow without a pillowcase.
The jewelry armoire is the one that we've lifted up. We've lifted
Yes,
up earlier.
the large one.
Okay. What type of processing did you do on that?
It was photographed and visually examined, and items of suspected blood were noted with scales.
And did you do the testing on those blood drops at that point to tell if it was a positive or negative reaction?
No, not at that point.
How else did you process the armoire at that point?
That was all we did that day.
What was the next item that you processed?
The brown in color comforter collected from the master bedroom floor.
What, if anything, did you notice about that comforter?
There was some, if I recall, there was some suspected mud also on that comforter, as well as on the pillow without the pillowcase.
And then how about the next item?
That would be the pillow without the pillowcase, and it was visually examined and photographed with suspected mud on it.
All right. Anything else that you processed there that day as you go?
No, there isn't.
Moving on to June 16 of 2013, at that point, did you have the opportunity to process other items of evidence?
I did. I received some items from Detective Brady that were not from the crime scene, a checkbook, some clothing and shoes, and they the large one.
Okay. What type of processing did you do on that?
It was photographed and visually examined, and items of suspected blood were noted with scales.
And did you do the testing on those blood drops at that point to tell if it was a positive or negative reaction?
No, not at that point.
How else did you process the armoire at that point?
That was all we did that day.
What was the next item that you processed?
The brown in color comforter collected from the master bedroom floor.
What, if anything, did you notice about that comforter?
There was some if I recall, there was some suspected mud also on that comforter, as well as on the pillow without the pillowcase.
And then how about the next item?
That would be the pillow without the pillowcase, and it was visually examined and photographed with suspected mud on it.
All right. Anything else that you processed there that day, Agent Gold?
No, there isn't.
Moving on to June 16 of 2013, at that point, did you have the opportunity to process other items of evidence?
I did. I received some items from Detective Brady that were not from the crime scene, a checkbook, some clothing and shoes, and they were photographed and visually examined.
And what type of clothing did you examine?
There were several shirts, several pair of shoes. I believe there were some shorts. There was a baseball hat. There was a variety of different clothing.
And did you know where these items came from, Agent Gold?
I believe they came from an address, an Oxford address. I didn't respond to that.
But did Detective Brady, who's seated behind me here in the courtroom, bring these items to you?
Yes.
Other than a visual examination and photographing these items, did you do any further latent evidence work on any items of evidence there that day?
There were some items with suspected blood, and I did perform some phenolphthalein tests on those areas, and I believe some swabs were also collected at that point.
We'll start with the photographs that you took. Do you recall taking photographs of some shoes there that day?
Yes, I do.
Whose shoes did you take photographs of?
Objection, she said she does not even tell where they were from.
Sustain.
Did you take photographs of shoes?
I did.
May I approach the witness room?
Yes.
Starting with 206, 207, 208, and 209. Take a look at those photographs and tell me if you recognize what they are.
These are photographs I took of a pair of black and orange Nikes.
And do those photographs fairly and accurately represent the Nikes as you photographed them?
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibits number 206 through 209 for illustrative purposes.
They're allowed for illustrative purposes.
And then State's Exhibit number 210, 211, 212, 213, and 214. You recognize what these photographs depict?
These are photographs of a pair of black and blue sneakers. Look like they're the brand Starter, I think.
And when you took photographs of these two shoes, did you take the photographs from different angles?
Yes, I did. And these were taken in the lab. There's an overhead, the sides, the soles.
Fairly and accurately represent the blue and black shoes.
Yes, they do.
Your Honor, at this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibit 210 through 214 into evidence.
They're allowed for illustrative purposes.
Agent Gold, I'm going to show you what has previously been identified as State's Exhibit 60 and then 60A. And 60B. do those appear to be the same shoes that you photographed back in June of 2013?
Yes, they do.
And these shoes were collected, can you tell by looking at the markings on the back who these shoes were collected by?
Gibney.
Gibney. And do they indicate who the shoes were collected from?
Overruled.
It says one pair Nike React sneakers, size US 9.5, black and orange, colors, suspect Travion Smith, victim, that's about what it says.
So these shoes were packaged in this bag.
That's correct.
And to your knowledge, Agent Gold, was there further processing that was done on these Nike shoes?
I don't know.
Okay. This yellow tag, do you know what this yellow tag means?
Now it looks like this shoe, it looks like a shoe print comparison might have been done with them.
And is that something that this CCBI agency does, is do shoe print comparisons?
Yes, we do have people that do that.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce States Exhibits 60, 60A, and 60B into evidence.
Any objection? They are allowed.
And then States Exhibit number 57, 57A, and 57B. Starting with 57, can you tell who the suspect was in this case, where these shoes were collected, and so forth, is listed on the evidence bag?
Suspect Ronald Anthony, Nike sneakers, blue and black, living room, front of couch, Oxford.
And what agent or detective collected those shoes according to that bag?
Detective Morse.
And Detective Morris, is that the detective that normally wears the bow tie? Do you know him?
I think it is.
Okay. And then States Exhibits 57 and 57A, any changes or alterations to those shoes?
No.
And those are the shoes that you photographed?
Yes, they are.
And again, this yellow tag, does it appear that it be a CCBI tag associated with the footwear comparison division?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce States Exhibits 57, 57A, and 57B.
Any objection? They are allowed.
On that day in June of 2013, and again, Agent Gold, refresh my memory as to which day in June are we talking about?
June 16th.
On June 16th of 2013, did you have an opportunity to examine an iPhone?
Yes, I did receive the iPhone.
And I'm going to hand you what has been previously identified as States Exhibit 12. If you'll take a look at States Exhibit 12 and tell me what that is.
One Apple iPhone 5, white and gray, belonging to the victim.
And can you tell who provided you with that iPhone, ma'am?
Detective Brady.
And on what date did he provide that iPhone to you?
This was collected, it looks like May 22nd.
And can you tell when you opened that document or that envelope and first examined it?
First time it looks like would have been Sean Brady, the 16th of June.
Okay. And if you'll remove the contents of States Exhibit 12? And what are the contents of States Exhibit 12?
The iPhone.
And has it previously been marked as States Exhibit number 12?
Yes, yes it has.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about what type of processing you did with that iPhone.
It was visually examined and photographed, and there was this one. Let me just make sure that I get this right. Yeah, and it was tested for blood with a positive reaction, and a swab would have been collected from right here, number 92.
And again, there's one of those stickers with the measurements on it, and it has a 92 on it, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and is that the area in which there would have been blood on that iPhone?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you States Exhibits number 215 and 216. You recognize those photographs?
These are the photographs that I took of the phone.
And it's labeled as item 87 there. Is that the item, the CCBI item number that was assigned to that iPhone?
Yes, it is.
And you mentioned that you did some blood swabs on that iPhone. Is that correct, ma'am?
That's correct.
And before doing that, you did the presumptive test, though. Is that right?
Yes, with a positive reaction.
I'm going to hand you what has now been marked as State's Exhibit number 217. If you'll take a look at 217 and tell me if you recognize what that document is, or item is.
Item 92, one suspected blood swab collected from item 87, the victim's iPhone.
And if you'll open State's Exhibit 219? What's
Okay.
the red evidence sticker there?
217.
217. All right, if you'll open 217.
Oh, sorry.
You place the 217A sticker on there, and what is that?
This is the swab that I collected from the cell phone.
And does it appear to be in the same condition, or has there been some processing to that swab?
It has been processed.
Other than that processing appear to be in the same or substantially same condition as when you collected it?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibit 12, State's Exhibit 12A, and State's Exhibits 215, 216, 217, and 217A.
Any objection?
No objection.
All right. 12 and 12A, and then are admitted. 215 through 216 are admitted for illustrative purposes, and 217, 217A are admitted.
Thank you. Agent Gold, just a few other swabs I want to talk to you about. Can you take a look at State's Exhibit number 218 and State, well, what's already been marked as State's Exhibit 36?
This one first?
Yes, ma'am.
This is a swab from the master bedroom doorknob. This is another touch DNA swab that we did on the exterior master bedroom entry doorknob.
Okay. Well, so you testified earlier about a DNA swab that was taken from Hannah's doorknob. Was this another DNA swab that was taken from Melissa's doorknob?
That's correct.
If you'll open State's Exhibit 218 there.
Mistake. That's the swab.
And does that swab appear to be in the same or substantially same condition except for the processing that has been done?
That's right. It has been processed. Yes.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce 218 and 218A.
Any objection? It's allowed.
And then I'm going to hand you 36.
This is a Suspected blood swab from the blood transfer stain on the master bedroom wall.
And when we had those photographs earlier, there was blood transfer on, I guess, the wall at the foot of Melissa's bed. Is that the area in which that blood swab came from?
No, this would have been if you were looking at the bed to the left, the wall that the jewelry armoire was against, and the purple hamper.
Okay, so the hamper and jewelry armoire, there was blood on that wall as well.
That's correct, and this swab is from that stain.
Okay. If you can open State's Exhibit 36. And here is 36A. And again, what is 36A?
This is the swab collected from that blood stain, and it has been processed by SBI.
Your Honor, this time I would ask to introduce State's Exhibit number 236 and 236A. I'm sorry, 36A. 36 and 36A.
Any objection? They are allowed.
Agent Gold will transition a little bit into fingerprints.
Okay.
You mentioned throughout your testimony and what we've seen in some of these photographs that you attempted to obtain latent evidence in the form of fingerprints in that apartment. Is that right, ma'am?
That's correct.
And in fact, were you able to obtain latent evidence in the form of fingerprints there in that apartment?
Yes, we did.
Do you recall approximately how many fingerprints, latent fingerprints that you collected in that apartment?
Maybe 50 approximately, maybe more.
Mr. Waller, we're going to
Is that a good time to stop?
recess for the evening and resume tomorrow morning at 9:30. So members of the jury, please recall all the instructions. Don't talk among yourselves or with anyone else about the case. Don't form or express opinions about the outcome. No media or independent investigation into these matters. And no conversations with parties, witnesses, or lawyers. If you'll leave your notepads at your chairs and gather at 9:30 in the deliberation room. Thank you very much for your service to the court. Outside the presence of the jury, are there matters that we need to take up before we recess?
Your Honor, I just want to mention, had we gotten to the point where we were going to transition to the cross-examination today, this is obviously a lot of evidence to try and be organized in your attempt to talk to a witness about. And so I don't know what will be here tomorrow. I will do my best to get here as early as possible because I don't anticipate there are many more questions, but I will need some time to make sure I have specific exhibits that I need to ask her questions about, and I know that some of the stuff isn't here in the morning. There won't be that many, but it'll just sort of take a little bit of probably Ms. Winston and I just sort of figuring out which ones.
We'll be here early as well, and anything that's here in the courtroom at this point will be kept in the secure area back there, and we can go get something if need be.
So it sounds like at least it ought to be on a card or something that can be rolled right out.
Right. I
Either.
just know that that'll be some logistics, and so I thought I mentioned it tonight because I didn't want it to be something in the morning where
What
somebody.
time would you like us to have it here? You tell me.
I mean, regardless of what time I leave my house, I don't seem to get here sometimes. I mean, I can leave at like 8 o'clock and I still don't get here until 9:15. So
Quarter till 9?
I won't be present.
Okay. Well, it'll be here.
But I mean, yeah. I mean, I will try and get here by 9 tomorrow.
We can go off the record, continue these logistics. Is there anything else that we need to have on the record? All right, very good. Then we'll be in recess until 9:30 tomorrow morning.